Founders of Alexandria. By Star Scribe. Part 4. Lainey. Chapter 4. Sky blinked, trying to settle in her mind which sensations came from within and which did not. Why did you pick this house to investigate in particular? There are so many others. Have you been watching us? Do the others know? Answer his questions, said the voice into her mind. She shook her head, gritting her teeth together and closing her eyes. I won't. You will obey me, the voice changed. It was someone else. I'm your father, Lainey. You're going to obey, or I'm going to punish you again. She felt the stings of his blows all over again. Heard her mother's tears, felt the impotent rage as the will bent down on her. Lainey was a broken pony, she had no chance of resisting a force like this. We were. She covered her face with her forelegs, expecting a bell to come down on her despite her obedience. She could smell his sweat again, and the earthy smell of the barn. Some of that smell was blood. Some of it was hers. No blow fell, however. That wasn't so hard, was it? She felt a gentle hoof against the side of her head. I'm sorry about this, cloudy skies. This is all very premature. It's nothing against you personally, little pony. Now tell me, how many of the other ponies know you're here? Again she felt the presence in her mind, the nightmare hatred deep as an ocean. Was it her father? Even the end of the world couldn't protect her. He had always said she would never get away. She opened her mouth to answer. And something else pushed back. She couldn't say where it came from. There were no other ponies nearby, though if she waited much longer, there would be. It felt like herself, but also like someone else. It wasn't a word, wasn't an invader, or even a presence exactly. It was an emotion, one she seldom felt. Rage. The rage of a tribe who watched its members freeze to death in the cold, a tribe with numerous predators and no natural weapons. A tribe without magic, without friends, and without hope. It was the defiance of humanity. But she wanted to be a pony. The nightmare voice was suddenly soothing, her father's memory gone. She remembered Alex instead, remembered the kindness Sunset Shimmer had showed her and the acceptance she had felt. It was a tempting prospect, and not one she had rejected. But the pony was not the part of herself she needed. The part that Lainey needed was Lainey. Lainey Park let her pony instincts go, at least for now. She embraced the defiance and the rage, and at once she surged forward. Ryan the unicorn looked utterly stunned, and Sky sent him into a tumble. Once he had been shoved out of the way, Sky kept going, colliding with the door with all the force she could muster and slamming the thin wood into splinters. Up, she screamed, pounding away down the steps and spreading her wings. Ryan's shouts followed at her heels, along with something much worse. The nightmare was not trapped inside, as she might have hoped. Could she fly that fast? Sky spread her wings, beating with all her strength. She let the breeze embrace her, filling her wings and her soul and blowing what remained of the nightmare from her mind. It only took her a few strides before her forehooves left the ground this time and she soared up and away over Alexandria's empty buildings. As the distance between her and the ground continued to grow, so did the strength the wind gave her. The wind couldn't be captured or compelled, it blew where it listed. Sky didn't know if the unicorn attempted any other spells to try and hold her, they failed. But the nightmare was still following her. Lainey drew on all her strength, breaking with her wings as though she was riding ahead of a fleet of invisible aircraft. The clouds seemed impossibly far away, yet she knew safety waited there. There was magic waiting in those clouds, waiting for her. Up, she shouted, willing the winds obey her. They did, twisting into a spiraling updraft that carried her away from the roaring odium tugging at her soul. It would not steal her today. Borne on the rushing of a gale that hadn't been there, Sky reached the clouds for the first time in her life. She would be safe in there. Sky had read about weather magic, and she knew there was a technique to pass through the clouds without getting stuck. Other ponies would fall through without resistance, but not her. A Pegasus had to want to pass through, or else clouds were semi-solid to them. Smacking up against the underside and plummeting back down would hardly serve her escape. She concentrated the wind into a point in front of her, driving it into the clouds above her. She began boring through it like a drill, swirling them into a thin fog. It was suddenly as though she was swimming instead of flying. Yet she'd been prepared for that, already braced herself for the impact. She only had to make it through the clouds, a few hundred more feet. Her momentum and strength were both almost gone by the time she made it out, breaching the overcast sky into bright sunlight. She dropped back a few feet, and despite what she had read, she expected to start falling again. Instead, the clouds wrapped themselves around her like a huge, damp towel. She sank a few inches, but the clouds held firm. She didn't fall, even without the use of her wings. The nightmare was gone. Rage echoed impotently below her, but the invisible being could not follow. The warmth of the sun cascaded through her, banishing the contagious nightmare like dew. It was magic, a magic she had never realized existed until then. The sun controlled much of Earth's climate, its heat made life possible. It warmed the water that rose to make clouds and heated the winds that carried them. It warmed the currents that Earth's rotation twisted. 8 light minutes away, the ancient might of primordial hydrogen gave up its nuclear brilliance and lit up the vastness of space. The sun always banished dreams. It could banish nightmares too. It was cold up here, and the wind blew furiously. Yet she wasn't so uncomfortable as she had expected. Pegasi, it seemed, were well adapted to the conditions where they spent their time. She took that moment to catch her breath, working through what she knew. Ryan could use advanced magic. There was something in the house, something she suspected Ryan had probably invited there. She had lost her earpiece in the house, which meant she hadn't heard anything her friends had said since she had confronted the angry unicorn. How many of the new ponies belonged to Ryan's group? 3, that she knew of, all from the same place. Carol the Bat Pony, Ryan himself, and an Earth Pony named Ed. Would she be seeing bat wings up here in the sky with her at any moment? She hoped not, yet something she had done alerted the whole group, and all of them had left the library. Were they less separate than they had seemed? Or had Dean and Kirk and Abrams and the rest all tried and failed to resist the same nightmare of hatred that nearly swallowed her? There was no time to rest, not when her friends were still down in Alexandria, still in danger. She might be safe, but they weren't. She lifted the radio carefully out of her sealed satchel, knowing full well the clouds wouldn't be able to hold its weight. Resting it in her forelegs, she removed the wireless headset receiver from the audio port and twisted the volume all the way up. "Hello? Wanderlust, are you there?" Was she even close enough to the ground for her message to reach him? Static buzzed over the rushing wind for several seconds. It transformed into a voice. It wasn't Wanderlust at all, but the harsh, strangely reverberating tones of the changeling. Yet as haunting as the voice was, she also sounded terrified. "Sky, I'm in trouble," she whimpered. "They saw me watching. I tried to stay hidden, but they saw me. Where is Wanderlust? Is he on this frequency still?" The insect whimpered. "And no. I'm not sure what happened to him. But Sky, they're breaking down the door. I've never felt hatred like this before, not even from you. I think they might be trying to kill me." Her voice was full of tears, making her hard to understand over the rush of the wind. Only the strange, reverberating quality of her tone gave Sky even a hint at what she might be saying. A dark voice somewhere deep in Sky's soul whispered that Alexandria's bug problem could be solved, and she wouldn't have to do a thing about it. She wouldn't have to be guilty of anything, nor would any pony else she cared about. It would be an outrage, an accident no pony could have prevented. She could be as outraged as the rest of them, when they found out. Besides, there was a more pressing issue. Wanderlust had been waiting for her, and when he had heard her in danger had probably gone straight for the place she had been last. If he hadn't been captured, he would be Riley. The insect, the girl, she had a name. Sky saw the picture of a child, grey eyes and dirty blonde hair and a goofy smile. Instinct screamed disgust at the frightening predator with holes in her legs and a wickedly pointed horn. Cloudy skies, the pony could keep running away, and leave the insect to her fate. How many times had she pleaded in vain for someone to come and rescue her? How many years had she suffered? Since she had been younger than the 11-year-old Riley. No one had come for her, and the result had been a life of agony. She knew nothing of what the mob would actually do, didn't know if Riley's intuition about their intentions was right, but it didn't matter. Cloudy skies might leave the girl to her fate, but Lainey Park never could. Humanity had no magic, after all, no semi-divine princess. All they'd ever had was each other. She had to help. Get to the roof. You can do that, right? Sky stood up, holding the radio in her mouth as she started to run, searching for an edge of the cloud. It was gigantic, one of an ocean of them that had turned this entire day to grey, but she remembered seeing several openings. She would have to find one. Her hooves sank a little into the fluffy substance, and in her frustration she started to beat her wings again. Up here, it took only seconds to get airborne, no long-running start. The clouds seemed to dance and swirl about her, and suddenly she knew the quickest way down, banking sideways towards the place she knew the clouds parted. She barely heard Riley's terrified voice over the rushing wind. Why yet? I think I can. I see can fly, though. JSMMMGMTMMMTHMMMM, she yelled, before twisting the radio into her satchel and cinching it closed. Only once it was secure did she speed up, twisting along the pattern she had only glanced at in the basics of weathercraft. Would it be enough? She was about to find out.